Right, it looks like we are live. Welcome to Unpacking Rally. And we have got Mr. Mike Johnston. Oh, sorry, Mark Johnston. Mr. Mark Johnston joining us tonight live. Mark, super nice to have you on, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks, man. Willem, good to see you, but
yeah.
All okay this side. Thanks, man.
Lekker. Thank you for making time to join us tonight. We are really excited for this talk. We've had quite a lot of interest for it. For you guys that are watching, I see people are still tuning in, but to start off, I just want to quickly introduce Mark. Mark and I met in the Tankwa in 2018, I think, Mark, was it 2018, 2019?
2019, yeah.
And I then discovered after we met that he's a master bike builder with super attention to detail. And if you follow Mark on social media, you'll know that he's quite well known in the bike building world. His bikes have been featured in Bike XF magazine, which is, I believe, one of the biggest magazines in the world for bike building. And then most recently, and the thing that I've been most liking most about it was the Alchemy Build. For any of you that have seen that, I mean, that is a crazy cool bike. So, Mark, that was quite a challenging build, I believe, but I mean, you managed to pull it off. And I mean, I don't think there's a bike like that in the world, I guess.
No, I certainly don't think so, especially from the electronic side. We did a lot of work electronically to that bike. We pretty much put in a whole new brain for the bike and wired in all sorts of wonderful bits and pieces. So yeah, I think from that perspective, certainly I want to.
Oh, cool, man. What was your favorite part of that build, and what was the worst part of it?
Actually, the electronics, I think, it was just something, I've never done before, working with modern electronics. I mean, most of the bikes we work with are pretty old. So actually to try and get the brain, it's called an emulet, to talk to the electronics of the modern bike, which that took some time. That took a good couple of weeks to kind of work it all out, get it working together. But it was quite like once it's done, that was fantastic. It's really nice feeling, bike lights up, press all these little buttons and things, and it does all sorts of nifty things. This is very cool.
Awesome, man. So then, recently, so for those of you who don't know, Mark and I also ride rally, which is, if you're watching this is probably, you know that already. And one of the big things that we struggle with in rallies is our hands because of the vibrations from the handlebars. I've lost several fingernails after events, and it took me a very long time to figure out what was actually wrong. I think I fixed it now, but Mark, you've had your own fair share of problems with your tendonitis, and I believe you've had a operation on your hands. So are you doing okay, man? When are we going to see you back on a bike?
Yeah, so after the Kalahari last year, my hands got pretty swollen and were very numb. And my left hand specifically, I didn't have full strength in it for quite some time, like maybe a couple of months. So I went to go check it out. They did some nerve tests, and they figured out that I'd damaged my nerve a little bit. And they've also kind of worked out that I had carpal tunnel. So I decided to get it done, with our plans upcoming for this year. Just get it sorted out, get it out the way before your training at least, and then before chrono later this year as well. So just get it out the way. So I don't know if you ever followed me, Vaughan Roo, that rode with me.
I know Vaughan, yeah.
You did Malle Moto with
You also built his bike, just for the record.
Yes, yeah, I built his bike. So Vaughan's a plastic surgeon. So this time he got to work with me, after me working on his bike. And he sorted out my hands.
Okay, so it was a straight up exchange.
I wish. That would be nice if it was. I should have charged him a bit more for the bike build.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he said it was pretty bad actually. The nerve was pretty well wrapped.
Okay.
In sort of fibers and stuff like that, but he managed to clean it all out, so he reckons it's going to be pretty good. But I'm off the bike for 4 to 5 weeks at least, I think.
Oh.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
Which also means I'm kind of not wrenching in the workshop either, but I'd rather get this sorted out now and then.
Exactly, man, and you're ready 2022 and 2023. So yeah, I'm very excited
Absolutely.
for what lies ahead for us and for you. So the reason that you're watching, probably if you are, is that we want to talk a little bit about the Karoo Roadbook Camp, which is something that Mark has actually been involved since the beginning. And the brainchild of the event, well, it wasn't a brainchild, it just happened, is that in 2020 we were going to go to the Kalahari Rally as a team, and were a bunch of us going together, and I created a training route for the guys to come and visit me and train. And just before our training ride, it was announced that the Kalahari was cancelled. And we decided we're gonna just carry on with our training ride, because what other road books are we gonna ride? And that had then spiraled into the Karoo Roadbook Camp, which every year has been growing, and this year it looks like we'll be quite a lot bigger. And last year we were much bigger. We had 3 Dakar entrants there last year, and they all finished Dakar, so we're very, very happy that they shared their experience with us and that they were there. And it's a great event for getting into rally. So it really is. A lot of guys are phoning us saying that, well, can I do this? Is it too difficult? The idea is to have a mix between professional guys and guys just getting into it, so that we can learn from each other. It's very informal, really nothing to worry about. And the idea is to kind of do what you can. If you're a professional rider, you're going to find a lot of benefit from it, because you'll ride more technical road books, and if you are a newcomer, you'll ride more basic road books. And the idea is that at night we'll do discussions and chats, kind of like we did last year. Mark, if you just want to, like,
You stop it.
I don't know what's going on with me. It's like a little, it's a switch that
I'm
went
gonna call
off
you
in my
Wally
brain.
just now.
You can do Willie. Oh, Wally, I'm fine. What's names but labels? Anyway, Mark, if you want to give the guys a quick overview of your idea of what the camp is like, for guys that hasn't been there, just so that they get an idea. And then I think we might just jump into the prep, which is what a lot of people are here for. So yeah, we can
Sure.
wrap up from your side.
Yeah, look, I think, as you said, if you're getting into rally and you kind of want to get an experience for what it's all about without having to fork out megabucks to go and do an actual rally overseas, or we've got the Chrono Rally later here, it's a great way to figure it out. So if you want to kind of work out if you're going to like it or not, this is a good way to do it. So that's one element of it. And I think the other element, like for me, it's just to keep the nav going. So I want to practice my nav. I know your tracks from last year were really nice and technical, so you have to be on the ball all the time. So even as an experienced rider, it's fantastic. You really have to be on the ball and awake and enjoy riding in some thorns and small little riverbeds and things like that.
And some rocks. I mean, for the record, you've got unfinished business there.
Maybe. But anyway, so so there's that perspective, and then I guess as the newcomer, if you really are keen on rally and you just want to learn how to road book, this is the perfect way to do it. It's not a race; you can take your own time. Obviously, there'll be guys going faster than you. There'll probably be guys going slower than you. So it's there for you to learn and how to figure things out. What to do, get lost, and that's quite important, I think. Like when I did my first Kalahari, I had no training beforehand, and except for doing the tempo, and I really struggled. My interpretation of how the road book was read was not quite correct, and I suffered for it. I really, really suffered for it. So this is a huge helping hand for anybody wanting to get into rally. And as you also touched on, the guys that are there, it's like, we've got some good rally riders are there, so come and ask us questions. I'm not saying one of them, but if you're interested in doing Malle Moto or building bikes, I can certainly help you.
You just have to bring your own spares, guys. You can't rely on Mark to fix your bike.
Don't come and ask me for spares. That's golden rule number 1. So yeah, man, come and ask us questions, and that's what we're there for. We're all there to help each other and make it a lacquer experience, and I think it's quite a lacquer vibe as well.
Yeah, we try and keep the vibe lacquer, and we definitely have a lot of surprises this year coming up with special guests and all stuff like that. We're also going to do some some Dakar roadbook kind of debriefing where we're going to look at actual roadbooks and tulips from Dakar this year, and we've already started building in the new stuff. Like, you know, we're working Leonard Kremer that was at the camp last year for CR6. This year at Dakar, he's given me great examples of issues that they had with the nav, and we're working together to build those issues into the road books so that when you come and ride, you know that it's fairly representative of what you're going to experience. You know, we already put in a lot of oblique headings and caps and stuff like that. So we're very excited for that. And then you also mentioned the chrono, Mark. It is something that, like, I feel as South African rally riders, or as rally riders, we all need to try and support, for the simple reason that it is the only rally in South Africa this year for a road book. You know, so we're not taking away anything from the Kalahari or the Tankwa. The Tankwa is very close to my heart. The Kalahari is very close to my heart, and I support rally of all events. But the people from the Chrono are really putting it out there, and they're really making it happen. So I feel we should really try and support them as rally riders and go and do their event. And also, as a side note, we are doing their road books for them, so we will make sure that the road books are good and up to date. So make sure you get those entries in, because I know, and it's the same for our event, there is limited space. So just something to remember or to think about is that, you know, you can't leave it till the last minute. There are limited entries for these events.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. I'm going to be spending a lot of time up there now in April, so I'm excited to go and see what the terrain's going to be like. Okay, well, that's enough chit chat. We will talk rally all night. I think that you guys are here to talk bike prep, so I want to just kind of pull that on the screen here for us, Mark, and then we'll take it from there. If I can find it now, it seems like I'm a little bit loose here. There we go. Okay, so Mark worked very hard on compiling this list, and I think, Mark, what we're going to do is we're going to like work through it piece by piece, and then the guys can, if anybody has questions, guys, please type in the comments, let us know, and then we'll basically take it from there. So we're going to focus on the bike prep. Mark also did a packing list for Malle Moto, which I think we will deal with if we have time, but we'll focus on bike prep today. And then also all entrants to the Roadbook Camp will receive these lists. So when you enter for the Roadbook Camp in your prep, you'll get these lists sent to you as well. Cool. So I'm going to just give you the headings and the checkpoints, Mark, and then you can kind of comment on it and let us know why or what you think. And then, like I say, if anybody's got questions, please fire away. And I think we'll start with the must-dos. The must-dos, obviously, is the absolutely bare minimum that you have to do. It's definitely not recommended to just do the must-dos. We want to focus on the must-dos and the should-dos. And what Mark put us there on, Mark, I'm just going to run through it quickly, and then you can comment on them. It's a lot to kind of take in. But it's to check the valve clearances, to change the oil, to change the oil filter, to change the air filter and grease all the edges, to change your spark plug, brake pads, brake discs. You have to check the pads and the discs. You need to check the brake lines. You need to check the coolant. You need to change the inline fuel filter, which we'll talk about now. Check the battery, check the earth connection and clean it to make sure it's tight. Lubricate the chain, check and replace the fuel connector, O-ring, new tires and mousses. And then also we've got to check all nuts and bolts, and that includes the subframe bolt, the swing arm pin, the lower and front and rear chain guide, the side stand bolts, the rear sprocket bolts, the tower bolts, the front sprocket seal for leaks. That's one that we added, as well as check the engine mounts, which is something else we added. I also want to just mention Juan, a very good friend of ours, also helped a bit with a few things on the list. Okay, so Mark, I'm done talking with the must-dos. Welcome to comment and give us some info there as to your idea.
Yeah, sure. So, look, I think it's probably quite important just to break it down here into, look, this is sort of more aimed at like somebody coming to your event so that they're not stranded. We don't want anybody to come up there and the bike's not ready and then you're losing out on time, because effectively it's just gonna cost you money. Same for a rally. When I go to Malle Moto, the bike is fully prepped, everything's done, everything on the must-do list, everything on the should-do list is obviously done before I go do a rally. Because you don't want to take on a rally and you've got an old bike and then some O-ring goes and that's it, you're out of the rally.
Mm-hmm.
That's the last thing you want to have happen. So we kind of looked at it from look, if you're coming to the training, you're really new to this sort of thing, you just want to get yourself sort of lined up as good as possible, then have a look at the must-dos.
Mm-hmm.
So the basic sort of servicing on your bike. So I'm trying to think now, like a couple of things we often see is, you mentioned tires and nooses. Just put in fresh tires and nooses, fellas. You don't want to come to the rally and you have an old noose that's been in there for 3 years and you ride the first day and it collapses. Mm-hmm. That's the last thing you want to have happen. Oh, geez, listen to me. You want to have it happen. So, like those type of things. And it's general maintenance. Just change your oil. Just make sure you've got discs and the discs are straight, they're not warped, they're of a certain thickness. Your manuals stipulate what the minimum thickness is for your disc brakes. Like I say, check the batteries, all those small little things, the connection. If it's slightly loose and your bike doesn't want to start like that in the morning, or it gets a little bit cold, it needs a little bit of extra juice, a little bit of extra current needs to flow through the wire and it can't. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, the must do is do that as a minimum before you come to the training. Mm-hmm. If you need help, reach out to us. We're happy to help you with that, or just take it to your local dealer, KTM Paul, or wherever you are. KTM Cape Town, Husqvarna, Elite Race, that's maybe they'll be able to help you with all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And you can actually ask them. Most of them you can actually ask them for like a rally ready check or a race ready check, mm-hmm. and they'll do most of the stuff for you. So they'll check the valves, they'll do the filters, they'll change the inline filters, they'll change the tank filters, and sort of things like that. So mm-hmm. that's what we are sort of really getting over there.
Yeah.
Just some...
No, you can go.
I was going to say a couple of other things. Obviously, for rally, you need to have a working headlight, you need to have a working tail light, and you need to have a working brake light. That's mm-hmm. mandatory, and your bike should be roadable, mm-hmm. Ideally, because that's what you're going to be using on the rally. So try and use this as, if you're coming to the training, try and use it as like a preliminary effort for doing a rally.
Mm-hmm.
Prep like you're going to go to a rally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so do it like you're going to go do a rally. And if there's something that you're short of, that you didn't work out or you forgot, then just make a list. That's the easiest way. And then put it into next time. So if you're planning to do the chrono, as an example, you come into the rally, so the rally training is done. Prep the bike like you're going to go do a rally. First tires, first nooses, check everything, get the bike ready, bring all the parts that you need, do all the stuff on the should-do list, as well as the must-do list, mm-hmm. and then see where you are and see how the bike performs. Yeah. Take it from there. And if there's, like I say, something missing, then address it for the chrono.
Exactly, and I think you use that kind of theory of doing that for Malle Moto last year. Like you came and you treated the Karoo Roadbook Camp like it's a rally, so that when you go for Malle Moto in Kalahari, you're 100% prepared, and it really stood you in good stead because you actually won the class. So that preparation is great. So. And the same thing goes for, I think a lot of people came there as a pre-run for a race, as far as saying how ready they are and what areas they need to work on. So if we're going to look at the chrono, you've got enough time. You've got May, June and July. It's 3 months to work on what's missing. So you should come prepared to do the race like you would go to chrono. And I think it's a really good insight from you as far as that.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I use your event as a training event. I mean, mm-hmm. I even bought my tent.
I remember.
My blow-up mattress. It's just the actual tent I used in Jackal. I used exactly that. Mm-hmm. And I had my little Malle Moto box. I had everything in my Malle Moto box. Okay, we had a gazebo up and all that stuff. But, yes, I used it exactly that. Mm-hmm. Just to try and see what else I needed, what worked, what didn't work. Like, I forgot a little camping chair. Mm-hmm. Sort of small little things like that you'll pick up as you kind of do it. So, yeah, definitely use it as a preparation for actually doing the rally.
Cool. Well, before we move to the should-dos, I see Yuri commented here. Thanks, Yuri, for the question. Yuri, it's something actually that I've struggled with in the past with my bike, and that's the front sprocket seal behind the shaft. I had to learn to do it myself, and like you say, the guys at Dakar changed it at rest day. I don't know why. I think it's very easy to put them in skew or to pinch them when you put them in, and I think that a lot of the times cause for premature wear, but Mark, you would know better. In my experience, I always buy two because sometimes I mess up the first one. So when I buy them and I take them to a race, I always take two. So Yuri, definitely I would say that if you don't put in a fresh seal, depending on how old it is, definitely take some with to a big event, because the chances of that going, definitely, I know you're on the Yamaha, but on the Huskies and on the KTMs, I feel it's a fairly common thing. But Mark, what's your input?
Yeah, for sure. You're talking about the countershaft seal.
Yep.
So that's the seal that sits behind the sprocket. Absolutely. Yeah, you definitely want to take one with you. For KTM and Husky, you can buy it as a kit. It's actually like a servant cycling. You buy it as a whole little kit. Mm-hmm. And there's two seals. There's a little O-ring, and it's the O-ring that normally gives the problem rather than the actual outer seal. But yes, you're right. So the big problem normally is alignment of the outer seal.
Exactly.
So trying to get that in square, and that's where you can sort of get it wrong a little bit. It's not that easy when you're out in the field. If you're in a workshop, it obviously makes it a lot easier. But you just need a right size drift, so like a tool to just plant that outer seal in correctly. But yeah, definitely carry on with it.
So the two things there that I struggled with when I did it myself, and guys, I am no mechanic. I'm learning as I go along, and but I actually became friends with Mark because he's so good with the bikes. So I'm no mechanic, but when I had to deal with it myself, the biggest challenge I had, Yuri, was to find a seal puller in Cape Town. Like it's only like 80 rand, like the tool. But to find a seal puller is fairly difficult, or I found. Like it took me weeks to find one. But I found a seal puller, and a seal puller makes the job much easier. And then to get that seal out and not damage the casing. And then I think there's a lot of things on YouTube where you can make something that puts the seal in perfectly nice and round with like wrenching it in with a nut almost. Instead of hitting it in with with a socket. So just make sure that when you put it back, that's the key. Make sure you put it back perfectly square, and if you can, buy a tool for it, because it's worth it. It's worth it than doing it twice. Cool. Okay, so then we're gonna go to the should-do list. Now, the should-do list moves into mechanics.
Did you want to talk about the bikes as well? It's quite a.
I'm going to you meaning the bikes in the sense of?
Yeah, which bike to use for rally? That's quite a question.
That's a big one. Okay, well, should we do we want to do that first, Mark, and then we can
let's quickly
go into, because most of our prep is KTM and Husky oriented. We know we've got some Yamaha guys as well. Like your bikes never break, so it's fine. We have to deal with the prep because our bikes are more finicky. But okay, so let's maybe chat a bit more about what bike to use, and then we'll go into the should-dos.
Okay, yeah. So I get asked that question a hell of a lot. And it's quite a difficult one to answer. So I can only give my sort of personal opinion on it. Everybody might be different, But generally speaking, you have to look at it from a couple of ways. Obviously, you've got the class restrictions. So it depends on what you want to enter. in the rally. So in Kalahari, there's a 450 class, and then there's an open class. So you can ride whatever you like in the open class. So if you want to compete in the 450, obviously you have to ride a 450. And if you want to compete in the open, you can ride whatever you like. My personal preference is to take the 500. And the reason for that is the characteristic of the motor. So the 450 is, I find, a little bit harder to ride than the 500. So you have to kind of just give it a little bit more oomph. You have to ride it higher in the rev range, and that just sort of tires you out. So a big thing when it comes to Malle Moto is using any and everything to try and reduce fatigue. And one of them is to ride a bike that doesn't drag you around. But if you ride a 500 hard, it'll drag you around for sure. But you can also just sort of chug on it, keep it in a high gear and just kind of cruise along. And I guess, the Husky and the KTM 500s are actually fairly bulletproof. I'm trying to think of all the rallies we've partaken in and how many issues we've had with the 500s, like motor-wise. Yes, there's been other issues for sure. But, I've used the 500 for quite a few years now, and I've had pretty good success with the 500. So that's why I use the 500. But like I say,
look to that.
For you.
To that point, I mean, I was on a 450 for two Kalaharis and a Tanqua, and the change from the 450 to the 500 is exactly that. There was that one stage, I think it was called Yenning Flay or Yenning something in the Kalahari, where I was like flat out like in fifth, and the moment I would go to sixth, the bike would just sink. I couldn't ride in sixth gear on that specific stage because of the sand. And that issue, that extra oomph, was never an issue with the 500. But if you have a big rally bike with all the extra fuel and all the extra weight, I mean, I'm not talking about rally light here. I'm more talking about that old rally bike of mine. That was a standard 450 base, and it would just go like, in sixth. Fifth was fine, but the amount of stress I put the motor under in fifth gear when I should be in sixth gear was quite intense, and that caused me to change as well to the 500, which I love. I think it's the ultimate all-round bike. I spent all of 2020 trying to prove that. So it's definitely the all-round bike, definitely. And for rally,
and then
perfect.
Yeah, and then I guess in the 500 between the KTM, quite often get asked what is the difference between the KTM and the Husky? And really it boils down to the subframe type. On the Husky, it's a composite. On the KTM, it's aluminium. And the shock linkage is different. On the KTM, it's called a PDS. And on the Husky, it has a linkage. So you pay your money and makes your choices. So that's it. I prefer the linkage. It's just a personal preference for me and the way the linkage works rather than the PDS. But, they're both great bikes.
Lekker, man.
I don't know so much.
The what? The Yamaha.
Specifically speaking here, but Yuri's Yamaha.
The KYBs. Listen,
yellow bee.
Yeah, Yuri, you were telling us last time that you've got some plans for the yellow monster, the heel monster. So we're very excited to see you this year. Hopefully you'll join us and see what's up. I know Yuri is also planning to head to Dakar one of these days. So we'll definitely hope that he can join us. Okay, well, jumping to the should-dos, it's quite a long list. So what I think we should do is we can take them one by one, Mark, rather than me rattling it off. And then we can kind of just throw ideas around if there's anything we have to say over and above what's on the list. So we've got the neck bearings to replace or grease. I'm assuming that would be if it's an older. Okay, we are back. We are back in the, what you call it, the metaverse. Back in the metaverse with Mark Johnston. Please, guys, sorry for the gremlins. I don't know what's happening. Maybe this is why Facebook's taking value. If you've been busy watching, I apologize for that. But we are back. So, Mr. Mark Johnston, you are back with us, and we were busy with the bike prep, and we were talking about the importance of checking your tank, especially if it's an IMS tank. You were giving a bit of very specialized info there for us.
Yeah, so on the IMS tank for KTM and Husqvarna, on the left-hand side, it rubs against the top of the motor.
Okay.
So what we ended up doing is actually sticking in a piece of rubber, a conveyor belt piece of rubber, because it's quite nice and hard and thin, just to stop it from chafing through the tank.
Okay.
So, look, just speaking about that, the method I took here, because it's a new item I'm using on the bike. So anybody that's putting something new on the bike would probably use this as well. If you're putting something new on the bike, put it on, ride for a couple of hours, test it, take it off, make sure that nothing's happening to it. So that's exactly what I did with the tank.
Okay.
Put it in the tank, we did probably about 20 hours worth of riding, took it off, noticed the chafing on the motor and on the inside of the tank. So then we adapted it for the Kalahari. So there's a lot of sort of testing that I do with all the parts that we get. Just, I have to, for a Malle Moto, you have to. You can't take that chance of just putting on a new piece of equipment and hope it's going to work.
No.
Hope is not a good strategy for Malle Moto.
Okay, cool. So then the next thing that we've got is to check the fuel pump and fuel pressure. You and I discussed this a little bit before. At home you might not be able to check the fuel pressure. To me, those things, that's worth it. Quickly stopping at the dealership and asking them to check your fuel pressure for you. It's something that I picked up before a race before, and I just changed the whole pump and take the old pump as a spare, just so that you have it. And that's something that, again, I have seen guys go out because of fuel pump issues. So definitely check that one. Mark, do you have any kind of feedback on the fuel pump?
Yeah, no, for sure, absolutely. Like you say, most people won't have a fuel pump tester, but just take it to your local dealer, get them to check it. And at the same time, just replace the fuel filter that's in the tank. That's something that often gets overlooked, and I think has led to a lot of fuel pumps burning out. Because they get so clogged, the fuel pump struggles to pump, starts getting a bit hotter than usual, gets worn out a little bit quicker, and then will fail a little bit quicker. We see it on the 701 quite a bit because nobody really gets into the rear tank. It's quite a hard unit to get out of the rear tank in the 701. And we saw lots of fuel pump failures in the 701. But it's the same fuel pump that's in the 500. So I know the 500s get changed on a more regular basis.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Cool. And then we have got to check and replace the chain sliders if it's required on your swing arm and on your sprocket, because it's got obviously the two sides, the front and the back side.
Yep, sure.
And then moving on from that, we've got a new sprocket and chain. Use something decent. I would say if you're going to go and do a race, you already entered, just put on a new sprocket and chain. It's worth it.
And I said it's very important to use something decent there, not the El Cheapo aluminium sprockets that you get from like the bottom of the range from PDR, just as an example. They're not going to last. You need something decent. I've had pretty good success with the Super Sprox.
Okay.
It's actually a light alloy inner and then a hardened steel outer.
I know them.
So it's worked really, really well for me. I've had no issues with those. I'm sure there's others, but those are the ones I use religiously and have been using for numerous years. But be careful of putting something cheap on there. You'll end up regretting it.
Then you've got replace the O-ring on the clutch slave. That's probably a very common thing, easy to do, but a common thing to go. I've seen that many times.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. It's been going on for years, like for years and years and years. I don't know what they're doing at the KTM factory there. There's like a little O-ring gremlin or something, but that's caused numerous issues. So it's fairly simple to replace. I mean, you can just Google online. There's loads of videos on how to do it. And it's a simple O-ring. The important part is just to use the right O-ring replacement. And it should be the EPDM O-ring. So not a Viton O-ring. That's quite important. Viton doesn't really stand up the brake fluid that well. So just EPDM O-ring.
All right. And then...
I was just going to say, your dealer will know about it anyway. They'll probably replace quite a few in their time, so they'll have stock of the It's like a, like a 10 Rand part.
Mm-hmm. And it's worth taking one with you to the race as well, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Bleed
sure, yeah.
your front and rear brakes and your clutch.
Yeah.
I think that's fairly simple 101 for guys getting into it. Check your radiator fan is working, especially for the sand. If you're going to go into a sand section for the roadbook camp, we've got some sand sections, so check that radiator fan. Grease all electrical connections with dielectric grease. Can you give us a bit more insight on that one, Mark?
Yeah, so this is actually something I picked up from old Mr. Lyndon Poskets when he was over here in South Africa. While he was building his bike, he was stuffing that stuff into all these connections. And it's a grease that doesn't conduct electricity, it's a dielectric grease. And effectively what it does is it keeps out all the moisture, keeps out all the shit, all the dirt, and all the grit, and stops the terminals from corroding. So I take the bike part, all the connections, I take some dielectric grease, and you get it in a little can that you can sort of squirt out, and you just pump it into all the connections, and then you close the connections. And that's it.
Nice. Then grease linkage bearings, we did mention that before, and then also to replace your coolant. I think that's also worth it and very quick and easy to do.
Yeah, very simple to do, man. Just and it's the same like bleeding your brakes. Same thing. Water gets in the brake fluid. Starts rusting things. Things start not working so well. You chew up an O-ring. It's game over. So same with the coolant. Just refresh it. It's easy to do. Really, really easy to do. Should be in the manual. One bolt. Release it. Drain the fluid. Put some new fluid in. Just be careful not to mix colors. Not the only thing I'd say there. So if green came out, put green back in. Red came out, put red back in.
Cool.
Yeah.
Then we're getting over to the wiring loom. You've got us there to look for frayed wires and chafing, reroute where needed, and then protect the wires where it's needed, especially around the neck of the bike. Wrap the cables with extra tubing.
Yeah, so quite often, like when I get a new bike, I don't know if some of you following me, I've got a T7 that's in the workshop at the moment. I'll take that thing apart and I'll check all the wiring looms. So even though they're brand new, I want to make sure that they're not pinched or clipped, or I just want to make sure everything looks smooth. And if it's not smooth, or if I'm really not happy with it, either put it in some sort of smoothing. I normally use a bicycle tubing. And just wrap it around in cable ties, or just put on there's something else which I use, is called dragon skin. It's like a hard frayed.
I've seen the dragon skin.
Matte plastic. Yeah, it's quite nice actually. And then just move it out the way, or just run it another part. Then on the 500, there's a couple of wires that I move and reroute. Just for me personally, I just don't like the position they're in and where they run. So I'll just rerun them in another direction around the bar. And maybe just put a bit of extra foam around them, or the dragon skin, or whatever the case may be.
Cool, okay. And then we're over on the wheel side. We've got to check for loose spokes. I think most of us do that anyway, or if we're not, you should be checking your bike spokes every time before you ride or after a ride. Loop your mousses if they're not new. Again, as we've said before, for a rally, make sure you put the new mousses and go with the new tires. Then you've got check tires for cracks. I would say even if it's new, we've both had our issues with tires. And then also check the bearings. That's the very, very first time I ever went on a roadbook ride. Halfway through the first day, very difficult day, my back end went, and the bearing seized up, and I had no clue. I mean, I was still learning, and we were stuck out in the middle of nowhere. Luckily, I got it sorted. It took me a very long time that night, and I kind of learned the hard way. But definitely checking your wheel bearings, it's something so quick and easy to do, and it is worth doing. You'll feel it.
And it's a very cheap part as well, just to replace it. Perhaps just on the wheels, I was just thinking now that a question we often get asked is what tires and what mousters. In fact, I had a question today on what tires and what mousters, so perhaps we can cover that. So, I think we probably won't get into our history with tires and nooses here, but my personal preference, and that's just my choice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want a proven, tested, known entity, in my mind, there's no other choice than Michelin Desert Race
Mm-hmm.
tires, front and rear, with the Michelin Rally Moosters. These are M02
Mm-hmm.
for the rear and an M60 for the front. That's like your tried and tested.
100%.
I run a slightly different combination. So I don't particularly like the front tire, the
Mm-hmm.
Desert. For me, it's just a characteristic thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I run the Michelin Enduro Medium on the front.
Okay.
Same loose, exactly the same, in a 9100 format rather than a 90-90-21. It's a little bit fatter, it gives you a little bit more traction in the sand. And on the back, it's either a Michelin Desert or a Dunlop P606.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So those are, that's my personal preference. And I think that would probably be 95% of the field that was a Kalahari was running something that's similar to that.
Yeah, I would say that, there's one person that has not agreed, or not agreed, that had a different combination. It's the one question, because people get really, really finicky about tires and nooses. And it's the one thing that, with every single rally rider I have ever spoken to, it's the only piece of advice that carries right through, that everybody agrees on. It's the only one thing that everybody agrees on is Michelin Desert Race nooses and tires. So yeah, I think that it makes the conversation much easier, because it's like, that's it. So yeah, I think it's an easy answer to a very complex question if you want to start moving or changing different things. But I think for a race and something like Dakar, there's a lot of them going around as well. So
yeah, I think if you look at all the pictures from Dakar, you'll see, I think most of them are running the Enduro medium fronts and the Desert Races rear. I'm pretty sure that almost the whole in field, except for the guys that get sponsored by, I think it's the other tire. It doesn't really matter.
I didn't even know there was another tire. Yuri is telling us that he only rides Mitas, but after Kalahari, I'm converted to Michelin Deserts. So Yuri is converted. Well done, Yuri. I mean, it's I don't judge people for the tires they use, so no worries. But yeah, lekker man. I think Michelin they have the market capped in that, So yeah. So okay, well, I think if we move on to the nav equipment, because if we go down the rabbit hole of tires, yeah, let's stay away from that. So with the nav equipment, I'm gonna run through it just a little bit. We're assuming that most people watching this will know a little bit about nav, but the main thing you need a working GPS. For the Roadbook Camp, I really suggest a Montana. If you don't have a Montana, a E-Trex will do, but the Montana is better. And then in a lot of other places, like the Dakar, will require you to use their specific GPS, which is like an ERTF unit. You have to check your navigation equipment works properly and correctly before you come. That's quite important. Check and clean all of your connectors. A lot of these M8 pin connectors can get dirty, so make sure you clean them properly before you come. Blow them out with some air. To check all your wires for chafing. Check all your fuses. Make sure you have spare fuses on the bike. Check that your GPS antenna is mounted properly and securely and in a safe place. What's your input there, Mark? I've seen GPS antennas mounted everywhere. Where do you put yours?
Yeah, I put mine on the front. I don't know if you've seen the brackets I made. Well, obviously you've seen the brackets I made, but I mount mine on the front there. And I've had a couple of crashes, and it doesn't actually reach that one specific point. So I'm kind of happy over there. But even on your clutch slave cylinder is another good place to put it. Somewhere, the way I found out is I put my bike on its side on the floor, on this way with the handlebars and the other way with the handlebars, and just trying to see, what's the space that it's not going to hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see especially I see more and more people putting it on the clutch slave cylinder cover, or the reservoir. Sorry, on the thing. I see a lot of people put it there. Okay, then we've got so if you're using a wheel sensor, so I'm finding more and more people moving away from the wheel sensor on the Odo. I think we're all, I mean, with the electronic roadbook that we're using, I haven't used a wheel sensor on the Odo probably since the 2018 Kalahari. So I really just run GPS. But if you run a wheel sensor, it's very important to check that your wheel is calibrated with your Odo so that you run the right wheel size. That's quite important to have accurate distances. Check your Odo and your cap readers are both working. Check that they're mounted properly and that they're secure. Make sure that you've got backing rubbers on the plates to dampen the vibrations as well. Check that your roadbook is working properly. We all have gone through many roadbooks in the last few years. Take some spares if you can. Check that the roadbook is mounted properly. Check all the buttons, especially of your controller. Another thing that does happen there is a lot of the times the thumb switch, for some reason, I don't know, that thing just gives a lot of problems. So take a spare thumb switch with you if you can. And then check that you have all the additional wires and connections that's required by the organization pre-installed before you arrive at the event. So at Kalahari, they send you specific stuff. I'm sure with Sean from Chrono will send you stuff. So just make sure that you have all the pre-wiring done so that when you arrive at scrutineering, it's just in and out, basically. Mark, what is your feeling on nav equipment? Is there anything that I missed?
No, I just wanted to add maybe one thing there. Just a little hint for anybody wiring up their own navigation tower. If you are in a KTM or a Husky, there behind the headlight is a plug. It's a black plug that actually is used to power the indicator harness. You can actually use that to power your rally navigation kit. So that's what I do.
Okay, that's a really cool tip. So thanks for that.
Yeah, it means you don't have to run a harness from the battery to the front, and you don't have to fit the relay, because the benefit is it's already fused and it comes on when the bike's on. So whenever you start the bike, you have power there, and if something happens, something shorts, it's already fused, so you just replace the fuse in the fuse box. So
nice.
And less wiring, of course. So I run everything from that. And those 8-pin connectors, yes, man, I really don't like them. So I actually cut them off.
I know you don't like them.
And I put on the J type connectors.
Okay.
So it's the same connector as you have for your front pickup on the KTM and the Husky. That little white little connector, like little waterproof connector. I quite like those. Hard to come by, but yeah, they are. You can get them in the country.
Right, well, I'm going to just quickly touch on general. We are touching on an hour, so we don't want to bore the people. And then I think we'll probably call it a night. It is Friday night. Thank you for everybody that is watching. So in the general stuff for the Karoo Roadbook Camp and for pretty much the whole rally scene, we're talking about you have to have, like you said earlier, a working headlight, tail light, and a brake light. Your bike for most of the time needs a roadworthy or have a disc. You need a fuel range of minimum 250 Ks, and when we had our Gremlin earlier, we got cut off, Mark. Did you manage to pull 250 out of that 18-liter tank, or where did you end up?
Yeah, no, I can get 250. Look, if I'm riding in desert, sand all day long, then no, but general sort of road riding, yeah, I can get 250.
Cool, and then you need a comfortable seat. Very important.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, we can bump that up the list.
That should be number one.
That's seriously important. Yeah. Like, seriously important. Not so much for your training, but if you're going to take on the Kona or Kalahari or whatever, for sure.
We'll start the Destroyed as diaries for interested people. I mean, it's really you make that mistake only once. Let's put it that way. So
that's yourself like a seat Airhawk,
yeah,
or what's a seat concept seat, one of the two.
Yes, I actually do seat concepts and Airhawk, but that's just because I like both.
You're a softie.
I'm a softie. I've had the pain before. Man, I think that covers most of the prep. Like I said, for the guys that are going to join us at the Karoo Roadbook Camp, please, we will send you this with all the other documentation we're going to send you, and then definitely kind of run through it. We are super excited. I mean, there's so much happening in the rally world this year, and it's just everything is just so exciting. It feels like it's finally waking up. So we're very excited to host you guys in the Karoo. Please, if you haven't entered yet, make sure that you do. That's very important for us because we need the right numbers. Mark will be there to give in-person advice. So that will be Laka. I'm very excited to see him. Some guys are asking here, Steve, welcome Steve, welcome Dion, nice to see you. Steve is asking who makes comfort seats. Seat concepts are in the US, but I think you can order them. I think there's Campbell McCurroch from Adventura Group. I think he sells the seat concept seats. I'll just double check, but I believe so.
Same with Loco Moto is another place that sells the seats. So you can speak to Vessel at Loco Moto. He does them. But unfortunately, there's quite a long turnaround time for the seats. So if you can't get one, a Seat Saint or an Airhawk is your next best bet.
Yeah.
It's like a little blow-up cushion that you can sit on there.
Yeah, so Steve, I think, I'm not sure where you're based, but if you're down in Cape Town, you can also speak to the guys at Flying Brick. They'll have all of that. And then heated grips, Steve, no, don't worry about those. You won't need them. It won't work for the rally. But other than that, just warm gloves. It does get cold in the Karoo. It's still cold in the Karoo that time of year. We had a few cold mornings. The first year, I remember it was freezing in the mornings.
The ice coming out of the tent.
And then, that's true. Teresa is making a very good point here. Maybe I'm being a bad host. Mark sells and manufactures his own rally gear, especially for bike products. So if you need any kind of protection or anything specially made, definitely make sure to hit Mark up. And I think that's it. And I will talk with you all night. I mean, Mark and I spend a lot of time talking. We've got Louis. Hello, Louis. Nice to see you here as well. And thank you for the thanks. Louis just says thanks for the info. And yeah, thank you, Mark, for your time. Thank you for sharing your brain with us. Thank you for sharing your list with us.
No problem at all, man.
Good luck with those hands. Hope they.
Thank you very much, man.
I hope they're ready by April.
I'm sure they will. They're going to have to be. There's no way around that. It's going to happen. I was just going to say, if anybody wants to reach out, feel free. You can follow me at Johnston_moto on Instagram. That's my most up-to-date sort of.
Okay, so you prefer Instagram over Facebook?
Yeah, look, it's relatively the same, but I'm sort of more, I guess you could say, more active on Instagram of what I do. And yeah, if you have any questions, just drop me a message on Instagram. Happy to help. That's one thing you'll probably learn if you're getting into this. We're super helpful. There's no I'm better than you and I ride faster than you. All very, very open, very, very helpful with each other. It's a nice community. So feel free to reach out, man.
100%. I mean, that's why we both love it so much, is because of the community feeling. Lastly, before we sign off, Dion, thanks for that. Dion says Nitro seats also now make a rally seat. So Nitro, they're South African product. I prefer to support locally. So if you can support Nitro, they do a rally seat.
Cool. Oh, that's Eric. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, listen, Mr. Johnston, thank you so much. Hope you'll get well soon. And oh well, Steve says he's got one more question. All right, Steve, go for it. Well, we're just gonna wait for Steve for that one question, and then we'll probably sign off. We're gonna see. Right, Steve, we otherwise what we can do is, Steve, if you don't mind, just WhatsApp us the question. Oh, KTM 500 or YZ 250? KTM 500. That's it.
Not really a question.
Yeah. No, on our previous video, Steve, before we cut off, we actually discussed it. So if you go back on the timeline, you'll see the first video. I'm going to stitch the two together. KTM 500 all the way. For the Roadbook Camp, you can do that on a YZ250, definitely. We've done it on a KTM 250s, the whole route, but you'll enjoy it much more on a 500. Hello, Stephen. Nice to see you. Okay, we're going to go now. Otherwise, we're going to be here all night. Thanks, everybody, for watching. This was really, really good. Thank you, Mark. I hope you have a great weekend, man. And we hope to see you guys all in the Karoo. Thank you.
Well, look forward to it.